All right, guys, it looks like we are live. Look at that. Today is, what is today?
Hump Day.
Wednesday, August 22nd. So
episode
you are
222.
Episode, here we go.
Episode
222 on 8/22. So you guys, let us know if you can hear us or see us. Obviously, this is my friend Joe Rosado. We've got a great topic today that we're going to talk about, which is medical cannabis. We're in a different spot today. Hey, Stephanie, give us a thumbs up. Let us know you can hear us or see us. The camera's a little different. I'm out of my comfort zone right now, so I don't want to scream because we are in the dining room at the Citrus Club today. They were kind enough to give us a back little area. I always belong in the corner. They let us in the back, in the dining room. Nobody puts baby in a corner, but unfortunately I'm in a corner today. So let us know you can hear us or see us. Give us a thumbs up. I'm talking a little quieter than I normally would talk, but I see people popping on, so hopefully you can hear us or see us. I don't want Joe to get into it for 10 minutes and all of a sudden you go, Ted, talk louder, Joe, talk louder. And so while they're going to give us a thumbs up, say hi to the Up Live family. Bob Clark, what's up, guys? So this is Joe Rosado.
Bob Clark, that's my former partner when I worked on Florida Rural Metro Ambulance.
Uh-oh. So maybe that's the Bob Clark. So these guys, this is the Up Live family.
If that's you, Bob Clark, give us a thumbs up. If that's Bob Clark, my former
He can probably
partner.
hear. Let us know, Bob. And Susie, you gave me a smiley face, so that must mean you can hear us. So let us know. If you tell me to talk up, speak up, I will. But welcome, man. We've been trying to get this show together. It's 100% my fault. Joe was scheduled, and then I had some personal stuff going on with Bob Lee, who you guys all know and love. And so Joe was kind enough to reschedule. But I'm fascinated by this topic, and we have to give a shout out to Trisha Dennis, because Trisha's the one that introduced us.
Noah's mom, for those who know her as Noah's mom.
Noah's mom. And she said, you've got to talk to Joe Rosado. You've got to talk to Dr. Rosado. Dr. Rosado. And talk to him about cannabis and all of the wonderful, because a lot of times you don't. Well, let's go to your story first, because I believe, like, I'm a huge proponent of cannabis in general. Whatever it is, whatever you want to do, I don't understand why we have it make it so people are in jail or kids can't have access to it or people can't get what they want. And so having a medical doctor actually talk about it, it's fascinating, and I had a whole bunch of people when I posted earlier this week that you'd be on the show. I had people message me and go, is he really a doctor? So I want you to give a little bit. It's shocking, right? I pretend to be one on TV.
You said the Holiday Inn.
I literally stay Holiday Inn Express, you know. So give us a background on you, Joe.
Okay, my medical career began when I was 16 years old as a certified nurse's aide / orderly.
At 16?
At 16, because back then, we're talking 1978, you could be an EMT orderly at the age of 16. So I took the course at 15.
Wait, you're older than me?
I just turned 56 in June.
Must be all that cannabis. I don't know what's happening.
I'm not a user.
Oh, there you go. Me either. So
CBD.
CBD, yes, absolutely.
But anyway, so I started as an orderly at Florida Hospital in Orlando, plugged to Florida Hospital in Orlando, transporting patients to and from X-ray department to their rooms. And then following that, I became an EMT, then paramedic, where I worked with Bob Clark.
Bob Clark.
Who works now for Vitacan.
Oh, it is him?
Yeah, Vitacan.
What's up?
He works at Vitacan, which is one of the dispensaries in Volusia County, Ormond Beach, Nova Road. Anyway, so I became an EMT, then a paramedic, then became a cath lab technician, heart cath technician at Florida Hospital again. Then I went to chiropractic school, then to medical school, then I got an MBA in healthcare management. So,
oh my God, you're really educated then. I feel really not smart.
Baffling people with the BS.
What did you always know when you first became the nurse's aide? Did you know you wanted to be a medical doctor then, or did it just kind of progress as you got more involved in what you were doing?
Since the age of 3, I knew I wanted to be a doctor.
How awesome is that? Now, where did that come from? Does your family have a medical background?
My dad was an X-ray technician in New York, Sloan Kettering, in Memorial Hospital in New York.
Sure.
And but at the age of 3, with my pediatrician, the first time I went to visit him, I had PTSD because for the first few years of your life, you're getting all these shots, all these vaccines.
Right.
So I was freaking out going to the doctor's office. And so back then, the OBs, the one that delivered you, gave you all your initial vaccines.
That's correct. Yeah, I remember.
And good memory if you remember back to 2
I
or 3.
remember that's what it used to be. Because my younger brother had all of them.
Exactly. And so the OB would be giving me my shots, and I'm like, look, you know, that was freaking me out. And so when I went to this pediatrician's office, it was a new environment, so I didn't freak out as badly. But when I saw the white lab coat and the exam table, that caused that whole freaking out. And he was very smart. What he did was he said, here, examine me. And he gave me the otoscope and a tongue depressor. And so I had my parents on either side, and so they began encouraging, going, yeah, go ahead and examine him. So he squatted down, and we were at eye level. And something about those instruments in my hand sparked something.
Well, he totally disarmed you, right? So
yeah,
isn't that awesome? And he got down on your level, which is so important when you're working with kids. Everybody say hi to Chrissy. Say hi, Chrissy. Hi. Say hi. No, you're totally fine. Thank you for the coffee. Thanks for the coffee, Chrissy. We appreciate you.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
She's awesome. But I think a lot of kids, when the pediatrician, especially when they get on the eye level, it made such a difference with my kids because it can be a very scary time for them. They don't know what's going on.
And so from that point forward, I thought I was going to be a pediatrician, which I did not. But once I got into the whole cannabis movement, my second patient to recommend for was a pediatric patient. It was a 15-year-old boy that had terminal disease. He was on hospice, and he had a tumor of the head and neck. And so he was the first child to receive medical cannabis in the state of Florida, and he was my second cannabis patient.
All right, so how did you get, so MD, you've got all these degrees, and then when did you become a proponent of medical cannabis? When did that come into become important to you, and what was kind of the catalyst for that?
Well, that sparked in medical school while doing pharmacology, where I learned that cannabis was not physiologically, you didn't create a physical or physiological dependence or addiction, more of a psychological one. And so it supported what I had believed all along. And I've told my children that are 22 years old, you know, I'd much rather you smoke cannabis than smoke cigarettes.
Right.
Because it's much better for you. And with their, you know, medical conditions that they have, it supports their issues. And so I've always been an advocate of them using cannabis.
So before we go, before we get further, Veronica Bancha? I can't see it that. Oh, no, it's Veronica Banks. Hey, Veronica. She said she'd love to interview you guys for her show. This topic actually got her fired off the radio show. Here's the great thing about Facebook Live, Veronica. It's all me. Nobody can fire me. So as long as I don't tick off the Facebook police, we're golden. But we'd love to be on your show. Anything that we can do to be proponents, but we'll talk more about that. All right, so, but thanks for tuning in.
But since medical school, I've been an advocate for it, and so I've been pushing for it. And then when it became legal in Arizona, one of my best friends reached out to me about the possibility of being the medical director at a dispensary there, because that's the law in Arizona.
Right.
And so we were all set to move back to Arizona, which I loved to live there. Shout out to Dom Dirth if he's listening or hearing me. And but his wife at that time, you know, our children were younger, and she didn't feel comfortable in us moving forward with that program.
Right.
Because, you know, the whole 1980s Say No to Drugs and, you know, etc. So we tabled that project until 2014, when John Morgan intelligently began advocating for it and Amendment 2. And so I sent him an email and said, look, I'm a physician, I'm an advocate, how do I get involved? And so within 24 hours, Ben Pollara, who was the campaign manager for United for Care at that time, his secretary reached out to me, and he and I spoke, and it was interesting because the first 15 minutes of our conversation, he spent trying to talk me out of it.
Why?
Because so many physicians had said, look, I want to get involved, what do I do to get involved? And the hospitals that they worked for or with or their partners were like, look, if you're going to do this, you can no longer be a part of our group, or you can no longer have privileges in our hospital.
Why did that? So were the hospitals? I want to talk a little bit about the vilification of it because I think it impacts everyone. So you were up against at that, especially even at that time, even if John Morgan's coming in, even in medical school, you're up against this preconceived notion that pot's evil, marijuana's evil. It's been being propagandized for a very long time. And if you talk to anybody who's pro-cannabis, they've got some conspiracy theory about why, and I'm not so sure they're wrong. But how did you fight against that? What made it so that you said, you know what, I don't care, I'm still going to do this?
Well, because I'm a crazy New Yorican from the South Bronx.
I love that. I have a friend out there that refers to himself as a New Yorican.
That's what we are. We're born and raised in New York. Parents are from Puerto Rico, so we're New Yoricans from the South Bronx. And so,
but you're bucking the system at that point, and so
I've always bucked the system with an F.
Did you get a hard? Of course you have. Did you get a hard? Were you getting a hard time when you were? You did it in medical school, you said, right? Is that
I was advocating. I was advocating in medical school, but I went to medical school outside of the United States, in the Dominican Republic. Shout out to Universidad Central del Este, la UCE, in San Pedro de Macorís.
What he said.
And so I've advocated for that, but I've always been a rebel, pushing the envelope, which has gotten me into a considerable amount of trouble.
I have no doubt in my mind. Was there a specific incident, was there a specific patient, or did you just go, you know what, this is wrong, and I want to be a proponent?
No, I just knew it was wrong, and I don't believe in government dictating to us what we can and can't do.
Sure.
Who we sleep with, who we want to sleep with, what we do behind closed doors, behind our bedrooms. It's nobody's business.
Right.
And so it's the government. It's not the government's business. And so one of the big issues that we have right now is that the state of Florida and its legislature and our governor has chosen to not comply with a constitutional amendment. 71.3 of us voted yes for Amendment 2. To use the whole plant,
so how do they not comply? I know what you're talking about,
and to use it in its entirety, not just in the vaporized form and in oil.
He's cherry picked what he wanted to address in that, and then the other stuff he completely ignored. Why? How does he get away? How did they get away with that? We're not bashing anybody, but I'm curious of how this actually works because it's so frustrating for all of us and all of you who have done so much work to get that bill, to get that amendment passed, and then all of a sudden he chooses to cherry pick. It makes me crazy.
And so for that reason, I've pushed the envelope even further, and so I'm one of the few physicians that advocate. I mean, I've got some amazing colleagues that are doing it in Southwest, Barry Gordon, here in Orlando, Raphael Bones, Southeast, I have Michelle Weiner, or Weiner, whichever you prefer, Michael, also in Southeast Florida. So we've got a good group of doctors that are advocating, supporting groups like MarijuanaDoctors.com, My Florida Green, Nick Garrelay, Shannon Livingston, Livingston Foundation, also all huge advocates, proponents, giving education and educating for free. We're not charging people for this. I mean, you're not paying me to be here. We're choosing to be here.
Oh God, that would be bad. I could pay you in booze, maybe food.
You got me coffee. That's
I got
good.
you coffee, so you're gold. Jason Patrick, ask your question again because I couldn't read what it said. Gil Levy, listen to you. Grant Carson's or Gary V thought you might want to, and I can't read the rest of it, so repost your question if you have one for Joe. But did you have to, so what is the AMA's take on this? And are you having to fight that all the time?
The AMA doesn't support it. The Florida Medical Association doesn't support it. However, as physicians, we originally, back in 2015, had to take an 8-hour course that we paid $1,000 for. And it was sponsored and put on by who? The Florida Medical Association, the same association that does not support the use of medical cannabis. Then, back in 2017, they changed the 8-hour course to a 2-hour course written by 2 attorneys, not physicians, of which they do not mention the endocannabinoid system, which is the fact that we produce cannabis in our own body. We have an endocannabinoid system that we produce cannabis, and we have receptors in our body where these cannabinoids work on. No mention of that. It's all about what we can and cannot do and the legalities behind it, and and if we do it, what the penalties will be. So we took that course, again put on by the Florida Medical Association. There's 1,600
They must
certifying
love
physicians.
you, Joe.
There's 1,600 certifying physicians. So I took the course, paid $1,000 in 2015, and then had to retake the 2-hour course and give them another $200. But I also took the medical director course in 2015, which was close to $300. So do the math.
So let me ask you though, do you think that it's really, so a lot of the primary conspiracy theory, I don't think it's conspiracy theory, but the primary theory out there as to why it is still villainized a lot and there still isn't enough acceptance, you have to keep pushing, is because of Big Pharma. Is there any truth to that in your opinion?
Well,
Or am I putting you on the spot?
I'm sorry.
Mr. Rebel, sorry, I made a mistake there.
But that. Well, let's just say that if they can make money out of it, they will. Epidiolex just came on the market, the first FDA-approved medication that comes from the cannabis plant. This weekend, I received notification that they have a brand new dronabinol, which is Marinol, which is a synthetic THC, in a liquid form with variable dosing for patients who have HIV, AIDS, wasting syndrome, and cancer. So, yes, in their eyes, it has no medical value unless it's synthetic and it comes from a pharmacy.
They can produce it, right? Yeah,
and it's synthetic, and it's made in the pharmacy, and it's a Schedule 3.
What does Schedule 3 means?
Okay, there's different schedules. So the cannabis in its natural form is considered a Schedule 1. They equate it, it's equal to heroin, meaning there is no medicinal value to it. The synthetic version of cannabis, which is Marinol, is a Schedule 3, which I can call the pharmacy, and I don't need to write a written prescription. I can call the pharmacy, and the person can receive that within 24 hours.
Oh, that's right, because of the whole change in everything.
Controlled substance.
Controlled substance. So it's not considered. So you just make a phone call.
Yeah, I don't have to write a written prescription.
So as soon as they get into the business and realize how much money they can make, do you think that we're going to see everybody kind of lightening up on it?
Winner, winner, chicken dinner.
There it is.
Cheers.
Right there. All right. So, and that's, I guess, the thing that's frustrating. There's so many people who are having to go behind closed doors. Even I mean, just the stuff that I hear out there, because we do a lot of shows on cannabis, and I'm such a big proponent, and I want people to have access to it. It makes me crazy that you don't have access.
A lot of my pediatric patients, the moms, shout out to the Canna moms, Giselle Delgado and Mariah.
Moms, I love it.
Yeah, these moms created this group to support, but these moms were cannabis immigrants. They had to leave the state of Florida and go to Colorado, go to California, go to legal states for their children to be able to get their medicine. If they had to do that for any other medication, everybody would be up in arms. But because they had to do with cannabis, oh well,
So when you're involved, so you have your practice. You're still a practicing MD.
I do.
So do you
licensed in the state of Florida and Commonwealth of Puerto Rico?
And the Commonwealth of Puerto. Oh, that's a Commonwealth. Let's
yeah,
talk about that.
It's not a state.
It's not a
we
state.
are the Puerto Rico are the forgotten Americans.
Oh, God. That's a whole nother story, guys.
And Guam, where it's also legal. Medical cannabis is legal in Guam and the Commonwealth of Puerto Rico.
So how do you, when somebody comes to you, are you able to write a prescription?
No.
Okay, so how does that work? Because you have the medical dispensaries.
Right. We cannot write a medical prescription, because if I write a medical prescription, I would lose my DEA license.
Gotcha.
Because we cannot prescribe a Schedule 1 drug. So we give a recommendation, just like I would recommend a vitamin or a supplement. So it's considered a supplement more so than medication, because again, the hypocrisy. It's medicine in the fact that when patients go to the dispensaries, they are not taxed, like they are not taxed for medication. But it's not medicine because you're writing a recommendation and not a prescription.
Are you utilizing CBD derived from hemp or marijuana in your protocols?
I primarily use CBD that's found in the dispensaries, which comes from cannabis.
So what I found interesting lately is we did that show that you were referring to earlier. We had Jeremy and Candy Gomez on, Jay Rios, we had JoJo, and we also had Nate. So what was fascinating about that is the reason I wanted to do that particular show was because I feel like now that cannabis has become a business, that I think the title of the show, which it was my idea, was, you know, I thought we were all supposed to get along and we're all hugging each other and have the munchies, and it just seems like because it's become business oriented, it's taken some of that out. So instead of, I know there's a lot of people that are getting into it for money, but people like the Gomez's, sure they want to make money, but their whole goal is because they've seen what it's done for their own lives.
Well, we have overhead, you know, and as a, you know, the person at the black market that's selling on the street corner, he has no overhead. You know, he doesn't have to pay for his employees, doesn't have to pay rent, doesn't have to pay for water, power, etc.
Right.
But again, in the process of offering this service, there are some unscrupulous individuals that are gouging patients and are overseeing and overutilizing patients, and that's not fair either, especially, you know, people that are terminally ill.
Right. It's been difficult. Like, for example, I think I've shared on the show before. I used a friend of mine is involved in believe it or not, there's a multi-level marketing. At least one or two companies that are doing CBD oil.
Yes.
And so I had never used it before, and it helped me sleep, but the costs seemed prohibitive. But the fact that they've built this entire business around it, and then if you go online, now you can't even maneuver through the thousands of sites where they're selling it online, the CBD oil.
Because it's 100% legal because it comes from hemp. And so back to that question, you know, if the only access that people have is hemp, you know, at least the CBD does work on the CB2 receptor, and so at least they're getting something. Right. Just be mindful and be certain that you are getting some labs and you're getting it from a reputable source rather than an unreputable source that what's in there is not accurate, because there's no regulation, there's no regulating it, there's no testing. And so what you get at any of the, you know, local health food stores or the vape shop or smoke shops, you don't know what the hell you're getting. So it's important that you know where the product is coming from. And, you know, later we can talk and give the names out of some individuals that are very scrupulous and provide a really good service and a good product.
I think it's hard too, because there's so many places out there, to try to figure out which one is really telling you the right information. Mm-hmm. And now, because those companies have, and I'm not knocking the companies, it's business, I understand that, but people they're being paid to be paid spokespeople, or they're getting involved in the marketing or the business side of it. And so if you're a consumer who's trying to get into it, or you have a disease, or you have something that you want to utilize cannabis for, you don't know how to get to the right information. Is there like a clearinghouse for that? Is there a website?
That's why I support, and I'm a big advocate. Like Florida Cannabis Coalition is an amazing source here in the state of Florida. Pete Sessa, Tom Quigley, that these guys are, you know, true advocates for the movement. Gary Stein just created a PAC to educate people, and he advocates politically for the movement. So these are people that are in the movement, are working towards, you know, freeing the plant, as many would say. Robert Roundtree, Chris Sunshine from Sunshine Cannabis. You know, these are Mission Zero that support the veterans and PTSD. Buds for Vets, Brett, you know. Puffenberger. I'm sorry if I killed your last name.
Puffenberger, it could be.
I may have killed his last name.
Where do they go to? What's a good site for them to go to?
Florida Cannabis Coalition is a really good source, because they kind of bring all of the like minds together, and then from there you can go to each one, because everybody that I've named on our show today, in some way, shape, or form, has been in that site. So Pete Sessa, SESSA, and Tom Quigley, QUIGLEY, and Florida Cannabis Coalition. That's a good source because they kind of pull everything together. But also the dispensaries. Yes, to an extent, it can be cost prohibitive,
sure,
but they do offer a lot of discounts, veterans discounts, children's discounts, free deliveries, deliveries within 24 hours. You know, Certera Wellness has free delivery now statewide. Curaleaf has discounts for children. Children below the age of 18 get 40% off. Veterans get 20% off. People on fixed income or students get a discount. VitaCan has some discounts. TrueLeaf, you know, the TrueLeavers in the state. Right. You know, TrueLeaf is, you know, also a big proponent and advocate. So These are the guys that are out there. Afria, who used to be Afria, now they're Liberty Health.
Now, do you have a website where people can go to look? Do you want people to, like all those names you mentioned, I guarantee somebody's trying to write those down.
Go to Florida Cannabis Coalition.
That's where you should go.
Yeah, FCC, that's a good source. And they're amazing. You can, on my Facebook, you can send me a message, PM, DM, whatever the initials are.
I don't know what that is anymore. Is it PM? Is it DM? All right, so
as long as it's not DL.
Am I allowed to ask you? So I'm super respectful about the compliance stuff that you have to deal with. Am I allowed to ask? Have you personally seen when you have recommended it? Is that the right word? Or you have referred them to, just like you would do a vitamin? Have you seen results? Like, have you obviously have seen where it has helped somebody either with tremors, which we've seen shows on, or I don't want to name specific diseases, but you have personally seen that.
Well, I was the first. I was one of the first in the state to recommend cannabis, the low THC. That patient's ID number was number 58. She was the 58th person to have gotten low THC, high CBD. In fact, 2 years ago this month. And then I was the first in the state to recommend the high CBD THC to a child. But shortly thereafter, we had, Barry Gordon, who I mentioned earlier. He's got close to a couple thousand patients that he manages since then. Nick Garrelay, My Florida Green, also in Southwest Florida, Naples area. He's got a couple thousand people, and so the most important thing that we're doing is weaning people off of opiates, getting people off of narcotics, which is an epidemic. And as a result of that, they've changed the prescribing laws in the state, to where you can get 3 or 7 days worth of opiates. And there's a massive control for doctors, and we have to take a CME on prescribing controlled substances.
It's a lot for you guys.
Every 16 minutes, somebody dies from an opiate overdose. However, in states where cannabis has become legal, there's been a 14% decrease in the filling of prescriptions of Medicare patients, and a 25% decrease in deaths caused by opiate overdoses.
Wow. So let me ask you about that, because we had two guests on, and one of the guests had lost a child, very tragic, to an opiate overdose. And so his thought process was, and I think this came from what he's been told and what he's been educated on, was that cannabis is the gateway drug. Can you talk a little bit about your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's the gateway drug. It's the gateway drug out of these goddamn opiates.
Yeah, there it is. So
it's a gateway. It's an exit drug.
It's an exit. But I think what happens, because of all of the propaganda that we hear about marijuana and about cannabis, is that people believe that that's where you start. So you start with marijuana, and then all of a sudden you're going to go to opiates, and heroin, and then everybody's walking around with Narcan, which is a lifesaver. Don't get me wrong, I think it's amazing. But as far as generalizing that cannabis is a gateway to it, I think that there's definitely some challenges in that thought process. So,
the gateway drug is the drug that's given to you by your dealer or your physician, because that's the one that gets you hooked. And then once you get hooked, then the state comes in and says, no, we can no longer prescribe, you can no longer prescribe that. And so the patient gets the crappy end of the stick. And so where are they going to get their opiates? On the street. They're going to get heroin to shoot up, or...
Because I have multiple friends. So we were talking, I had a long talk with somebody yesterday. When she's ready to talk, I'll have her on the show. But she was talking about how so many people get off of their opiates because of either cannabis or the product that she was talking about. And so I think it's fascinating to me, because I have so many people who are addicted. I know people who are truly addicted to the pain pills and the prescription. And where do they go when the 5 to 7 day thing runs out? I'm sorry, guys.
Wherever
you can buy it on the
it.
street. When I had Vicodin once for my back, didn't do anything for me, so it sat in my closet, in my medicine cabinet, and I happened to casually mention it at the party, and they're like, "Can we buy that?" No, I'm not going to jail for you. You cannot buy that. But that is how much there is a desire and a need and an addiction, and they wanted it. They're like, well, we'll buy it for $50 a pill. Fascinating. Might pay my bar tab, but I don't want to be Mrs. Anybody in jail, so it's not happening. Because that carries with it so much of a jail sentence.
But you do look good in orange, though.
Orange is the new black. That was good. No, we're not doing it. I literally still have those Vicodins, so please don't break into my house and get those Vicodins. I keep it there just in case, but it never did anything.
It didn't do anything.
And I'm not, believe it or not, I'm not an addictive personality type person. But,
contrary to your guest this evening.
Yeah, exactly. All of my guests, or what's in my coffee mug. But I think that people are super. That is definitely an issue. I have so many friends that are literally addicted to that, and they don't like to talk about it. Occasionally they do, but when you bring out I call it the Felix bag of tricks, and you've got it shakes when you walk. You've got too many pills, people. But I am a big believer that marijuana is not, or cannabis is not the gateway to that. I can't believe it. So, all right. So we're gonna share. It goes by fast, right? We're way past time.
Holy crap!
No, it's good. We're super past time. But you have a lot. So anybody who made comments, Joe and I will both respond to you. I promise later on. We're going to share all of Joe's contact information. We'll share the website for Florida Cannabis Coalition. No.
Yes, Florida Cannabis Coalition.
We'll share that later too once we post the show. So you can reach out to Joe directly. Believe me, he's super responsive. What a great guy. Big proponent, big heart.
And you'll share to me so I can post on my page as well.
100%. So any parting words of wisdom for them? Anything you want to share with them? You have a lot of people asking specific questions, which Joe can answer privately. And if he feels like everybody should know the answer, we can always do multiple shows. I'm a big proponent of this. And I mean, how much more of an expert can you get? You have a medical doctor who's a proponent, right?
The most important thing is this is an election year, a midterm election year, where we have true power of who we vote for. So be mindful of who you vote for. Be certain that the people that you vote for are indeed going to be cannabis friendly and are going to support our efforts and are going to be responsible and advocate for a constitutional amendment that we voted for, a resounding yes, greater than any other state in the union. And be mindful of who you vote for and put people in power that will advocate and support us. A shameless plug, Nikki Fried, who's running for Florida's Department of Commissioner for the Agriculture. I may have screwed up her title, but Nikki Fried, who got her account closed by Wells Fargo because she was quote unquote getting marijuana money. So wow. Wells Fargo closed down her bank account that she was getting her donations to be able to run and advocate for the state. So Commissioner for Agriculture in the state of Florida, Nikki Fried.
Guys, listen. I know it sounds like it's conspiracy theory. I promise you it's not. Stuff's going on and people are getting shut down when they're trying to promote something that's 100% natural, that grows, and I don't know why we have to make it, why people are even in jail, that's a whole other story for stuff. It just makes me crazy. All right, so you've been a joy. Thank you so much.
Oh, my
I appreciate
pleasure.
you, brother. I really do. Joe Rosado, right here. He's awesome, Dr. Joe. So cheers to you guys,
Cheers,
and then we're going to ask our friend Ed over here to hit the finish button. So it's a teeny little button on the bottom. There you go. We love you guys.